Um, there we go. Welcome everyone to the Oakland Center for Spiritual Living. I'm Reverend Allie Hutchinson. I'm a staff minister at OCSL, and my pronouns are she and they. I'll be your host tonight for our Wednesday night Oasis service. Oasis is a place where we come together midweek as a community to be spiritually refreshed and nourished. And most Wednesday nights, we build on the themes of the previous Sunday, sharing science of mind principles and practices with the intention that these gatherings be intimate and interactive and informal. Our annual theme in CSL for 2025 is Rising Higher, Growing Deeper, and our monthly theme for February is Divine Discontent. Tonight, our speaker will discuss the weekly topic, Emptiness, the Wonder of Interbeing, and her particular take on it, which is inner work for a time such as this. If you are new to our community or watching our recording for the first time, please visit our website at oaklandcsl.org. Click on the I'm New icon and look at the lower left-hand corner of that page to submit your email address. And then once you do, you'll start getting our weekly newsletter, The Village News. It has all the information about what is happening at our center in the coming weeks. Before we begin with the talk, please mute your microphone if it's not already. It improves the quality of our transmission and our recording, and you can leave your cameras on if you like. And we do ask you to please stay tuned through the very end because at the end of service, we have a lot of important announcements about things going on at the center. Our speaker tonight is Shirley Strong. Shirley has a master's degree in education and an MA. She is a diversity consultant and former chief diversity officer and dean of students, and retired in 2020 after 50 years in higher education and nonprofit work. For the past 20 years, Shirley has focused her energy on making beloved community a touchstone of her life and her work. In her 60s, she embarked on a seminary education, which had been a lifelong goal, after which she completed a spiritual memoir. She grew up in a segregated Black community in the Midwest, which, although not perfect, loved and protected her, and she now lifts it up as an example of beloved community. Shirley identifies as Black, womanist, elder, cisgendered, and a grandmother to 8, and her goal is to live a flourishing life and to remain fit and healthy. So, Shirley, we thank you in advance for being our speaker tonight. But before turning to your talk, we always open our Wednesday services with a prayer. And I think Reverend Deb has volunteered to do our opening prayer tonight.
Yes, I have.
All right.
Good evening, everyone. And let us take this time right here and right now to just allow our eyes to close and just to drop into this right now moment. This right now moment that we give thanks for the gathering of all of us that are here collectively in this moment, in this time, giving thanks for those individuals that will see the recording and knowing that everything that is required for this gathering tonight that is already done in the mind of God. So what I know is that this Wednesday night oasis, that it's already perfect. Giving thanks for all of the hands that have come together in order to make this service possible. Giving thanks for the speaker, Shirley Strong, for the words that she brings, the open heartedness that she brings to this talk for tonight, for this interaction tonight. I give thanks for OCSL to be able to even have this opening available, the Wednesday night Oasis available for so many people to connect with and to connect to each speaker, each individual, and this spiritual community. I am grateful for all that is unfolding in this time and even more farther down the road, knowing that this talk, that it expands beyond anything that we could ever imagine. So I just give thanks for this, knowing that it is done and it is done well. And I anchor this with, and so it is. Amen.
So it is. So now let's turn to our speaker for tonight and give her a little welcome with a, I don't know, little wave or some hearts maybe. Um, I'll turn it over to you now, Shirley.
Thank you, Reverend Alley, and thank you all for being here. And I'm going to just start with a few things, but I hope we can really have an interactive discussion. These are interesting times in which we live. I was thinking about the I guess the passage, the scripture that Reverend Sunshine Michelle and others have shared over the years. I've heard it many times. And so my title is The Inner Work for Such a Time as This. And the quote comes from the Hebrew scriptures, Esther 4:14. And the quote is, who knows that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? And I think that we all have a role or something that we can do at this time to support each other and all that's going on in the world. And I suspect, from my point of view, the best way to do that is to be grounded and really focus first on our own inner work. What do we do? And the question I asked of myself and all of you is, what do we do in our own spiritual journey and background to prepare ourselves to do this work that we are called on to do in the world at such a time as this? And I want to share a few things I've been doing. And I started counting how long I've been doing it. And Freddie, I decided I've been doing these things longer than you are old. And that's not to say that put you down, but it's just to say that I surprised myself when I realized that it's been over 30 years when and I first got the first thing I want to mention, and I've added each over time. I have about 3 things that I'm going to just quickly share. And over time, I've added them and I've committed them to memory because I used to travel a lot and I used to want to be able to do them wherever I was and not worry about having to bring them along. And the first thing I got from a dear friend who's no longer with us in the world, and they're called the Principles. And I believe she got them from Christ Universal Temple in Chicago. And I'm not going to read them, I'll just mention the headings. The first is the omnipotence of God, or the omnipresence of God, the divinity of man. And you probably, as SCL and Science of Mind, know all these. The vision and power of thought, practicing the presence, and the law of demonstration. So I started going over those in my head first thing in the morning when I get up. Before I turn on TV, before I do anything, I really try to just do this first. Before I look at my phone, before I get online, I try to do these principles first. And I've noticed over the years, because I've committed them to memory, they're kind of like a script in my head. And sometimes I can't go in and just talk about one. I have to start at the beginning and go through the whole thing, because that's kind of how I learned them. So that's sometimes a challenge when I just want to mention one or say something about one, and I'm like, well, let me see. And I got to go all the way back in my mind to how it starts. But they have been really useful. In the beginning, when I started doing them, I realized that I was trying to do them before any big thing I was going to do. And I realized that if I was anxious or nervous, it was harder for me to do them. Say I had a job interview and I wanted to do them before my job interview to get ready. It took me 3 or 4 times to be able to go through them all in my mind. I'd start and my nervousness would show up in how well or how hard it was for me to go through the whole thing. And over time, I've noticed I've been able to calm myself down and to just go through them. And going through them calms me down. The other thing I do, and it was really great when I came to OCSL about 4 or 5 months ago, you were doing the prosperity principles as the reading for the year. And I've been doing those for just almost as long. And I have an edited version. It's like each one is about a sentence that I've committed to memory. And I go over them as a part of my morning ritual and meditation. And I would have to say there was a teacher and pastor who said, and you probably have heard this, it works if you work it. And I have to say these principles have worked for me. And sometimes, and recently, with all the stuff going on, I noticed I had a moment of fear. Think I had about 12 hours of fear overnight. I was listening to all the news, and I became frightened and scared, and it was unusual for me. But this is a unusual time, and so next morning I woke up and I started remembering all the goodness of, and I'll say it in my culture, all the goodness of God and all the things God has done for me. And I started giving thanks, and the fear left, and I haven't been afraid since. And I know all is well. So I feel like this is what I have needed all my life. I'm glad I finally, I guess I would say in my mid-40s, discovered it, and am using it in everything I say and do. The other thing I do, and this is pretty much the last thing, I do Wayne Dyer's The Power of Intention. And it's sometimes referred to as the Dirty Dozen. There are 12 points that he has that I recite. So all this, over time took me a while. I've learned it. And once I learned it, and I think it's good practice just for mental gymnastics to just be able to sit down and recite all these things in my head. And I also, in addition to doing the recitations, really do pray and give thanks and just sit in silence. But this is the anchor, that these things are the grounding pieces of my spiritual work these days. It's sort of like the well that I have that I go to, especially in times of need or stress, or when I really need a foundation. I have this as the foundation, and I'm very grateful for that. I'm just going to mention one other thing that I came up with as a part of my work with Beloved Community. And then let's talk about what you do and how we can do all this together as we support all that's necessary and needed now. Freddie, would you mind sharing the slide? So I created these 10 ingredients I call it for spiritual engagement or activism. And I feel like this is what sustains me and it may look a little different for each of us, but it can sustain others as well as we do this work. And so I think there are 10 things we need. We need a vision that inspires. For me, that's my vision of beloved community, building beloved community. But each of us has something in our lives that's a kind of a driving force or a touchstone for us in terms of how we live our lives and operate in the world. And I think being conscious and intentional about it is really important. Also, a personal story that motivates or compels. For me, it's the story that I often tell when I do a beloved community presentation about when I was 17 and on my way to college and heard the Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech. And I was a young kid going to a PWI, predominantly white institution, and scared to death. And this speech grounded me in a way that helped me go to that school and struggle and go through all that I had to go through, but come out the other end with a degree. And not in 4 years, but I came out with a degree. And I'm grateful that this speech inspired the rest of my life. I said, this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life in terms of social justice work. I didn't go there directly. I did education first and eventually got to social justice work. But I still hold that moment when I was so inspired that I knew what I wanted to do with my life. I'm not going to go over all of them, but as you think about them, as you look at them, ask yourself, what are the things that you may frame it differently, but what are those things, those principles, those things you use as your guiding moments? Let me just share one or two more. I have it here somewhere. I'll just tell you, a commitment to others that strengthens and reinforces. I love mentoring young people, particularly young professionals and a little earlier in life, young people in college. That was a part of my work, and I felt I really saw it as a calling. I saw myself um, as a chaplain in a higher education institution, as opposed to a hospital chaplain or a chaplain in other ways. As an art form that nourishes, I do collage work. And this, Freddie, is mostly cut and paste. It's not anything fancy like you would do. But I have 31 collages that I have framed and that I have throughout my bedroom. And I tend to do one a year. And so you can see I've been at it for a while. Sometimes I do more than one. And I started at the beginning of the year, just like a vision board, but I turn it into a collage. And I have all the things that I want to do in my life, whether it's get fit, um, whether it's travel or whatever it is, eat healthy. I put that in a collage and I use it to sort of motivate me. I think I'll stop there. Is it not quite 20 minutes, but it's close. And ask you to join me in a conversation for what's the inner work you do to ground you and to really help you do what we need to do in the world to support others and to really move the cause of justice forward for such a time as this, when it's so very, very needed.
I'll invite everybody, just turn on your cameras if you'd like to and open up your mics. And if you want to make a comment or ask a question or anything, if you can use the icon at the bottom, that's great. If not, just wave at us or do something. Make sure Freddie and I can see you. We'll try to make sure we don't miss anybody. And what a wonderful question at this point to talk about how we're all staying grounded with everything that's going on. And Dr. Judith, did you look like you might want to say something? No? You're muted, sweetie.
Yes. Well, I think back over my life. I mean, my life away from home. At first, I was a hippie for several years, and I got things out of that. There were things out of that that positive things for a hope for how the world could be. Actually, we all thought that we would never come back into regular society back then. We thought we would stay there, and we turned out that turned out not to be true. We had to come back in and have more or less ordinary lives. It's not anything different, anything new that I'm doing. It's just that I am doing it more religiously. My daily practices, trying to have conversations with people that are not just, oh, what's going on, or trying to be a certain way when people are being negative about it. I try to put in something that says that doesn't help us. I mean, let's just see what's possible. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm part of the Dr. Dan group, where we meet Monday through Friday and we talk about one day in Dr. Dan's, I forgot the name of the book. And it's very rich, and it's very it could almost be any book. I'm thinking about it lately, that it's just that there's a whole group of people, we get together and we're talking about life in a way that is uplifting. And so I'm grateful to that exists, and that I was able to jump in. Deborah was one of the people that created it originally, and so that's what's happening on a regular basis. I'm taking what I've always wanted to do, and I'm looking at the pieces of it and doing it more strongly. I'm also, at the same time, I have friends, which is interesting. I just turned 79, so I'm 1 year before the big one, and I have two friends who are both in the hospital, having each fallen and broken their hips, and another close friend from church who just lost a partner. So life is still happening. Life is still happening. Hard stuff is still showing up, and so that has to be part of my life. I have to be supportive of these people that need my support. I need to be supportive of my granddaughter and my great granddaughters, and so there's like pieces, but in the middle of all that, I am taking what I'm beginning to sort of crystallize my intentions for this time period. I wrote a couple of songs so far. And I will go on to do more. Music is my whole thing. I love music. I love to sing. Huh?
Music is your art form.
Music is my art form. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm yeah, I love to sing. And now it was some years. I was feeling numb about what was happening outside. I'm almost done. I was feeling numb about what was happening in the world. I wasn't having any feeling. I couldn't figure out, well, what's that all about? And I didn't know what to do with numbness. I wasn't angry. I was just, and so I said, well, why don't you try something that, used to, bring things out for you? So I've started writing my songs again. Yeah. So anyway, thank you. I believe I'm complete.
Thank you. One of the pieces of advice people are giving these days is being in community. Don't go through this alone. And that's a biggie. And I think we sometimes, under stress and anxiety and all this, everything in the world, we isolate, and it only makes it more intense. And so I think that this community, and one of the things I was looking for a long time was a spiritual community to be a part of. And I am so grateful I found old CSL a few months ago, before all this, what hit the fan.
Right.
Because it's really helpful to have that as an anchor. Somebody else want to share?
I'll go while people are thinking, just because you mentioned community. You talked about having principles in your head that you can shorten and refer to really quickly. That's really helpful, I think. But mine right now are resilience and community and sort of visioning. Resilience, because, we're going to be in this for a while and we have to take care of ourselves first. And like you said, if you work it, it works. So devoting the time to spending time just with the presence of God every day has been really important. And then community, because I always say, like, the concern is about someone having power who doesn't make you feel safe necessarily, but power comes in many forms, and our power, we know, comes from our connection to spirit and in our oneness with each other. So on a psychological level, on a physical level, on a spiritual level, that seems like the next most important thing is strengthening every connection you have. I think I made a list of like 10 of my closest friends last weekend and called all of them
Mhm.
in the process of just setting up different, connections with them. And, with the stuff that's been going on, we've seen how people are responding and pushing back, and things are having a little bit of an effect, but it's coming at that kind of grassroots level. It's like all of us knowing that we're in this together and we can act together, and we don't have to just rely on ourselves. There's strength in our oneness. And then the other one is kind of visioning like what's mine to do and not being rushed to respond to everything, but really ask. I remember in 2017, I'm a therapist and I watched each of my clients one by one. I've said this before, but it was a wonderful experience to watch each one of them one by one figure out what their thing they were going to do to respond was. And it was everything from donating money to volunteering at something to one of my clients said, I'm not an activist, but I love to cook. So he would have Sunday dinner every night for a bunch of his friends who are activists. It's like finding your thing to do that's like your little piece of the garden to tend. It actually ended up being this sort of beautiful mosaic of all different kinds of things that people decided to do. So those are my three that I'm working on in these times, my inner work.
Resilience.
Mhm.
Well, resilience, community, and what was the third?
Well, I haven't quite settled. I need to settle on a one word thing, but it's kind of like figuring out what's mine to do.
Oh,
What's
yeah. Mhm.
what's my piece of the garden to tend?
Focus.
Yeah. And I said visioning earlier because I think that's got to come from, not making a decision on a personality level, but just, you know, as we talk about envisioning, letting catching the dream that spirit has for you.
Mhm. I like that. Yeah. Yeah. Saying yes.
Yeah. Even when it's not clear, which it almost always is not. Look, you want me to do what? Why? Okay.
And
So,
I think once we say yes, the doors start to open.
yeah. And then eventually you figure out why you had to do that thing 6 months ago because now it's led you to this other thing.
Mhm.
Who
Freddie,
else? Oh,
oh, I'm sorry,
no,
Judith, were you going to say something else?
you're muted. You're okay. Who else?
Freddie, you're muted.
Ready.
Yeah, I can go. And similar to you, community is also one. It's knowing that I'm not alone and also finding spaces of joy. Just when things get too overwhelming, I feel like I need to, even though sometimes I can feel maybe not like regretful, but it's like there's so much happening, like I feel maybe selfish, like taking time to go to a movie or, enjoy a nice walk or something. But I think it's more so a form of rest where I can step away from all the craziness that's happening and just enjoy life. And remember that even though it's difficult now, talking with community members, talking with elders, that, we've all have been through tough times together and we've found a way to make it through. So even though it's difficult now, we're still going to find a way to persevere and make it through. So that's something that I've been trying to remind myself, and talking with others, listening, providing space for others, and getting those different perspectives also kind of helps me ground. So yeah, finding moments of joy where I can.
I call
Isn't
that
it?
resilience.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
there's a new book out. It was maybe a year old, called Rest as Resistance.
Well,
Have you seen it? Have you, I mean, are you aware of it?
I've heard of it. Rest is resistance.
Yeah. So it's not just something we do for ourselves, but that it seems like so corny, but it's so true. We have to put the mask on ourselves before we can put it on somebody else. We need the oxygen before we can help others. Ken, what about you? What are your thoughts on how you are coping and taking care of yourself? And
Well, I have a daily practice. I look forward to the reading the daily passages in the Science of Mind magazine. I have some spiritual audio messages that I listen to before I actually start my day. I we talk about community, which is kind of key. I have key individuals that I feel that are like my spiritual siblings, that we support each other through the days, and we talk through and make sure that everybody, each other is held up and clear minded, and we remember whose we are versus being victims or victims of the world, or are just feeling lost in this chaos. For me, I try to filter out the negativity to stay anchored in the truth. And so a lot of that is maybe listening to gospel music, spiritual word, meditations, also affirmations. So I just try to continue to feed my spirit with positive messages, because I find that in my community of friends, they have now named me as the person who is to anchor them. And I find that really interesting, because I think so I've gone through the process of becoming a life coach, right? So when I first started out, all my friends were looking at me in such a peculiar way, like, why would you choose that? And then when I completed the program, they say, oh my God, I see it. There's been a drastic change. Oh, that really worked out for you. But you're my life coach now, right? And I'm going so I just kind of point them to themselves and tell them to learn to self-manage. And I'm kind of like a straight shooter. I don't believe in coddling anyone. I believe it's our responsibility to manage ourselves and to hold ourselves accountable. And so I try to be an example of what that looks like. But also, if I can encourage someone to do the same, I try to point them to literature or prayer, or find some kind of routine that works for them. Because I feel that first, like you say, we have to feed ourselves first. We have to give ourselves. And so you can't look for somebody to save you. You got to save yourself. And so that's usually where I operate from.
so when it comes to gospel music, who's your favorite artist?
Interesting, you should ask. So I vary. I would say Yolanda Adams is probably the top of the chart for me, because I love music in general.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like vocalists that don't necessarily need any background. Somebody who can come to the mic and sing without needing assistance, right? That's kind of why I love the church, because with just a piano accompaniment, most of the vocalists are there and they could sing by themselves, right? So I'm kind of picky in that way. And so there's others, some of the young ones that are coming up. But I like traditional vocalists that actually can belt a song out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and stay in the right key.
Stay in the right key. But also I find that too, there are people who can sing, and then there's who can sing, right? And so I like those who can move me from the inside out. My favorite singer of all time is Aretha Franklin, and all of her earlier years, I feel that she could sing anything and I would be okay with it. So
Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay.
I like old school gospel too, though. There's one I don't know what his name is, and he says he likes all the new gospel, and he starts the new rap or spoken word. He starts naming all the different kinds.
Right.
Stuff I'd never heard of. I'm like, really? And he said, "But when you're in trouble, you want to hear those old hymns of the church." And
Well,
that's just how I feel. Give me Amazing Grace or a few of those things because that's what I grew up with.
right.
And that does something to me in a way that the new stuff doesn't.
In 30 years, they'll want to hear the new stuff.
That's interesting because I would say that I think spirituality and gospel music is generational, right? It's what you were introduced to whenever you got your calling or you felt like you were where you were supposed to be and you connected, plugged into God. And so for me, it was during the time when Yolanda was first starting out. And I mean, I think that during those years, I hate to say it, I think she sang her best. And so,
I do too.
right. And so during that time, that was also, I want to say, when Whitney Houston was on the top of the charts. And so that was they were peers in a lot of ways, even though they sang different genres of music. And so for me, I really just resonate with that. Now, the traditional gospel hymns, I can listen to them, but they don't move me like they move you, Shirley. I'm sorry.
All right. I
understand. It was not intentional to offend you, but for me, I can attest to and appreciate anything that is expressed genuinely from the heart. You know the difference. You know, authenticity, gifted vocalists, they move regardless of what they're singing and what they're saying. So
thank you. You know, I can't see everybody. So are there other people who want to kind of give us their playlist when it comes to what they do, how they do the inner work?
Yeah. Art forms, other practices.
Or
I don't want you to forget Mahalia Jackson, okay? As one of our fabulous. I gotta tune in on that one, okay? Mahalia rocks all the way.
I agree with that.
All right, I'm completely.
What's your favorite Mahalia song?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
What's your favorite Mahalia song?
Amazing Grace. When she sang that, it just brings tears to me, and just knowing I got the opportunity to see her in person at Vassar College in Poughkeepsie, New York. She came and she put a concert on at the college. At that time, it was an all-girls school, Vassar, and then it turned to a co-ed. But she came there and put on a concert at Vassar College, and she rocked all the way.
Wow.
I just love it. I just loved it.
And I saw Megan turn her camera on. Did you want to add something?
Hi, Megan.
Hi, sorry I'm working, so I got two screens going on here. So yeah, I work with homebound, chronically ill people, so I have to do a lot of grounding because a lot of what's going on right now in the political atmosphere changes our work significantly and impacts people's health and financial and whatever else. And I was driving last week because a lot of my patients, some of them they don't leave, and so I'm kind of their only contact with the outside world. And so a lot of it is a little bit of complaining and fear, and understandably fear of what can happen with their life and things that they depend on to live. So it was a hard visit, but something dawned on me as I was driving, like does spirit change based on who the president is? So, there's this human side where it's very easy to get drawn into the horrible things that are going on, and not to deny the human experience, but just grounding in those principles. So, I try to, when I'm driving, I meditate. I meditate in between if there's some hard conversation I know that I'm walking into, or if I just left a hard conversation. I try to keep positive things coming through while I'm driving. So there's like a group of podcasts that I listen to. I have a bag with all my daily readers and my magazines. I carry those with me wherever. So if there's a moment or something, I need to ground back into spirit, and just stay present. And then as far as creativity, that helps me. I love to cook, so that's something that I do when I have time, is to cook. And otherwise, spend time outside. So that's been hard lately with all this rain. So like one of the things I love to do is just walk with my dogs and my kids by the water. So, just somehow turning back into spirit, is what it is. However I get there, it's turning back into spirit.
Love your question, Megan. It was, does God change regarding on who the president is? Was that how you put it?
It said, does spirit change? Does the nature of spirit change regardless of who the president is, right? Because it's like, oh, it's very easy to get into the doom and the gloom. And the last time this individual was president, we were in the middle of the COVID crisis, and it was probably one of the worst things I ever experienced in my nursing career, where I saw people who you see deal with death every day. All of a sudden, everybody just became panic, and it was like the end of the world. Mm-hmm. So trying to not go there, not allow myself to go there. And so it's like, okay, it's kind of a despair that we're here again, but at the same time, it's that question: did God move or did you move? Did I turn away from spirit? Does it matter who's president? Spirit is the same.
I love that. I love that.
We went right back to Shirley's first principle, the omnipresence of God.
Yes, yes. And I had when I realized Trump was going to win, I called my two sons and I said, I'm going to channel grandma for a moment here. And I love doing that, because I think that sometimes people capture the essence of who we are and where we are. And I think you've done that with your question. And my mother, I said, grandma would say, God is still on the throne. Mm. And it's funny, it resonated. They are not into that at all, but it resonated, because those are timeless things. Mm-hmm. So thank you for that reminder. Does the spirit change depending on who the president is? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there someone else we can hear from?
I just want to say that Reverend Victor always used to say, Papa's on the job.
Yeah.
Papa's on the job. Okay. Papa's at work.
Yeah. Who else? I had a thought about when you mentioned the news. We all feel like we kind of have to watch a little bit of it at least, and it's a little hard to get grounded after. I always had a tendency to do that thing that Fred Rogers calls looking for the helpers. So, there may be bad things going on, and there are lawsuits being brought to stop it, and judges who are issuing restraining orders, and people in Congress calling for hearings, and nonprofits saying, no, we won't do that. It's sort of like I've actually made it much more explicit now when I turn the news off or it's into a story or whatever. I ask myself, who did I see that were the helpers in this story? To get back from, yes, there's all this stuff going on, and So, and then that goes to Megan's thing about, and underneath all of that is something else completely, entirely different reality that doesn't change. Yeah.
Looking for the helpers, but that's a great reminder, though, that there are always people out there standing up and standing for what's right.
Yeah.
And even if we just send them our energy, or if we just say a prayer or something to just the energetically connect, I think that makes a difference.
Yeah. Well, someone else said, like, even if you're in a state where you don't need to write to your congressman or whatever, write them and thank them.
Oh, yes, yes.
It's nice to know people have your back.
Mhm.
We could
Well,
do
I'd
that.
like to write them and ask them to kind of get on the case and speak up a little bit more. Let us hear from them.
People have been in shock. You know, it's like, wait, what's happening?
Yeah, I guess we have to allow for that.
Yeah.
We have about 4 minutes. Is there anyone else who would like to add a final thought or comment as we wind down or wind up?
Some quiet people tonight. Dr. Judith?
Yeah. I grew up Jewish. So a lot of the stuff of other people's backgrounds, I appreciate without understanding it as much. And for a reason that I can't figure out at all, I somehow came across a gospel singer, CC Winans, is her name. Yeah. And I know all the traditional gospel singers from before because they were part of, in a way, they were part of the folk movement too, many of them. And folk music was what I was into. But this song, I'm Jewish, and I don't have, despite the fact that Jesus was Jewish, I don't have that kind of connection to him that people in the Christian world have. And so I have no idea why I am obsessed by the song that she sings, which is called Come, Jesus, Come.
Mm.
And I cannot get it out of my head. And I often go back on it on my iPad and listen to it again. It's like, it's very, I don't know. It's got me. I don't know what it means that it's got me, but I walk around singing it in my house. And I don't really believe in that, because that's not the way that I pray in Science of Mind. Mm-hmm. I don't pray that to have, I'm not praying for someone to do it for me, someone greater, something greater than me, do it for me. We're doing it together. And the song is about Jesus coming, fix it all. We need you right now. Come now. And somehow it's strange that it is soothing. It ends up being a soothing song. It's strange, but anyway, that's where anyway, that's just something that has come to me without, I don't know why. I feel like it's there for a reason, but I don't know why.
Yeah, I see a couple of people, Ken and then Freya. Or Freya kind of turned her camera on first. So whichever one of y'all wants to go.
I just have something briefly to say. Well, thank you. Because my mother read her Bible every single morning, her entire life. And I was in the practitioner course for 2 years, and so I kind of learned, it's good to have something to stand on. And but somehow I've kind of strayed from the course now, and I want to get back to it because I finally feel like I have something to contribute. But I need that grounding in myself to be able to do that. And so, I mean, in the morning, I try to get to gratitude before I get out of bed. And it helps me if I get in I can tell I've gotten to my heart because I start crying, you know. So crying actually gets the energy flowing, and then the gratitude, and then I can get up and do my days. But I would like to have some kind of consistent thing like my mother's Bible reading. So thank you for the reminder to find create that for myself. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Ken, you might be our last person.
And will you wrap us up and bring us home?
Well, actually, I was just going to piggyback on Judith. I wanted to tell Judith that CC Whining is one of my favorites as well.
Oh,
But probably the reason why you feel CC, because CC was born and raised in the gospel family. All of her family, from her dad through her siblings, were raised singing gospel music. So it radiates from her being. So that's probably why you're moved by her. And I want to say, from my point of view, is CC is kind of like a hybrid between traditional gospel and contemporary gospel. So
okay.
so she would mostly resonate with multiple generations because that's where she sings from.
Thank you. Yeah,
Reminder, there are many paths and one spirit.
Absolutely.
well, she owns that song. I tell you, she didn't write it. Somebody else.
I'm gonna have to listen to it, Judith. I've not heard it, but I'm gonna check it out.
She owns that song.
Well, we are at our time, so I'm gonna just turn it back to you. And thank you all for being here. And just as a reminder, there's an old African proverb. I think I may have said it the last time. If you want to go far, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go, go together.
Say it again, because there was a little bit of noise in there.
If you want to go far, go alone. Wait a minute, I'm sorry, I messed it up. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.
Yeah.
And right now, we need each other.
Okay. Let's give Shirley a little love for a wonderful talk tonight and facilitating this. And there we go. All right. And now we'll turn to our announcements. We have a few. So this Sunday, February 9th, Reverend Verona Garland will be speaking on You Are Enough, the Art of Happiness. The meditation starts at 10 and the service is at 10:30. Next Wednesday, February 12th, at our midweek oasis, join Sabrina Bolus for an encore conversation on the topic You Are Enough, the Art of Happiness. Meditation is at 6:30 and the service is at 7 on Zoom. Our daily readers in our community for 19, oh my God, 2025 are 365 Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes and Daily Gratitude Reflections, Volume 2 by Deborah Perdue. So please join us in doing those daily, or one of them. We're in the midst now of the Season for Nonviolence from January 30 to April 4th. 64 days commemorating the anniversaries of the deaths of Mohandas Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. You can pick up your daily affirmations at the front table of the sanctuary the next time you're at the center. The Social Justice Ministry is hosting a movie viewing of The 6888 for Black History Month. Please join us on Saturday, February 15th from 3 to 6 p.m. in the social hall. Also, join us on February 16th during our Sunday service for our commitment ceremony. You can commit or recommit to yourself as an individual, as a couple, or as a specific family or community. And we welcome everyone's participation. Please register at oaklandcsl.org on the events page. Please save the date. Our Oakland CSL 80th anniversary gala celebration will be the weekend of September 19th to 21st, 2025. Other events will also be held during the year, so please stay tuned for more information that'll be coming soon. And finally, we are the change. Participate in our coin drive in celebration of our 80th anniversary. Bring your spare coins to OCSL and drop them in the designated collection jars in the sanctuary from February 9th all the way through December 28th, 2025. Every small contribution adds up to a big change for our community. Together, we can make a difference by honoring our past and building for our future one coin at a time. And thank you in advance for your participation. A couple more. Our nonprofit partner for January and February is the Oakland Literacy Coalition. They believe that learning and liberation depend on literacy, and all children and families should have the opportunity, support that they need to learn to read. Visit oaklandliteracycoalition.org for more information. And the Spirit Treasure Bookstore at OCSL celebrates Black History Month with 30% off all books by Black authors. Please visit our website at oaklandcsl.org and sign up for our weekly newsletter if you haven't already, Village News. Remember to follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook for special updates. And please remember to like and subscribe to OCSL. And you can also visit csl.org to see what's happening within our Center for Spiritual Living global organization. You can also see on a slide here our contact team for all the various things you may want to chat with someone about at OCSL. And while you're looking at that, I'm taking a sip. And now we are going to make our transition to our conscious giving time. Conscious giving is many things. It's a celebration. It's an expression of gratitude. It's a spiritual practice. And it's a way to put our spiritual intentions into action. In giving, we celebrate our community and express gratitude for all the folks who give of their time, talent, and treasure to sustain it. We acknowledge our place in the flow of universal power and abundance, and we put our intentions for greater experiences of abundance into action. So please follow along as I read the giving affirmation. I freely give what I have, and the divine source multiplies it in return. We have many different ways to donate. If we think about checks or cash, I think we've got another slide for that. We could, on the oaklandcsl.org website, you can just click the donate button. It'll bring you to that place where you can see all the different ways to give. So check, cash, Zelle, text. We have a QR code, whatever strikes your fancy in the moment. There are many different ways to give. And in that spirit of gratitude, we'd like to show our appreciation for all those who have contributed to our service tonight. Our speaker, Shirley Strong. Reverend Deb for doing the invocation. The ministers present, which I think tonight was Reverend Deb. I don't think I missed anybody. And our tech host tonight is Freddie Lambright, who's new to our team. Our administrative coordinator, Steve Carter, who worked in the background to set up our slides. And finally, all of you, because everyone participated with their energy and their presence to make this community what it was tonight. And I'm going to ask Shirley, would you like to do the closing prayer tonight? Would you like me to do that?
I was, but I'm having a coughing thing, so why don't you?
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. I just ask everyone to get quiet for a moment, to remember that there is only that one presence, that one power that is always there, that is eternal, that has always been there and will always be there and is unchanging. And it does not change who it is as conditions and circumstances in the world change, as conditions and circumstances in our own lives change. It is the divine order that created and sustains and brings order to and loves and holds and delights in all of the creation. I know that I am that. I know that each person is just one unique manifestation of that one mind, one spirit, one creative power, one sustaining life force. Each one of us just like a wave on that vast ocean of consciousness. I know that within that vast ocean of consciousness, all is well. All is well now, all will be well. That ocean of consciousness is our source of infinite love and joy and presence and grounding, unchanging and eternal. That place that Ernest Holmes referred to as the part of us, spirit within us as our divine essence that can never be hurt, harmed, or hindered. That is the place we connect with when we take a deep breath or 10 and go inside. And I am so grateful to know that that is the ultimate truth of the existence of each one of us and each person throughout the universe. I know that I can speak my word into the law with this intention that we know and connect with that presence, and the law simply responds, yes, yes, beloved. It was already done. So I anchor this prayer, letting go and letting God. I anchor this prayer by simply saying, and so it is. All right, folks, we are at the end of our service for tonight. So feel free to turn your camera on or your microphone if you like, just to say, hey. And we see everyone. Hey, Ref Deb.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you all for
Thank
coming.
you, Shirley.
Thank you, Shirley.
Thank you, Shirley.
Hey.
Miss Shirley.
Thank you,
Yes,
Freddie,
beautiful.
for anchoring us tonight.
Thank you.
Freddie. Woo-hoo.
Thank you, Shirley.
Thank you.
Maureen.
Here.
Good night, Grady. Good night, Megan.